Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Oh, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning to you. Oh, good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I think all of my lights are on. Yes, yes, yes. Can everybody see and hear me well? Everybody can see and hear me well, hopefully. Good morning, Lady Barbara. Hope that everybody is doing well. I want to say good morning to each and every one of you. I see what was going on. My own light from my phone, because I turn it down at night when I'm not using it, was down. There we go. All right. Just wanted to make sure everybody could see and hear. I hope everybody is having a great and wonderful Friday thus far. Hope that you are accomplishing everything you need to accomplish for the day. I still have some things I need to accomplish as I go out and about today. Today we are back in the Bad Food Bible. As we said, we're going to start the section on meat and really find out what we need to know about meat and meat consumption. And then we're going to be back over in Wealth Can't Wait, which is looking at wealth from a specific perspective about principles of wealth building, but also looking at wealth building in terms of real estate. All right. So those of you who are interested in real estate, this would be an excellent book for you to check out. Wealth Can't Wait. So I've got something to drink. I hope you have something to drink today. I know this is not on topic, but I want to say that I will put this in to the healthy section and slash relationships, what I'm about to say. But lately I've been hearing some very interesting comments from the male sector. I'll put it that way. And one of the comments that was said, it's actually, I went to sleep with the comment on my mind, and I actually woke up with this same comment or the same thought on my mind. So we're gonna tack this under healthy relationship talk. All right, is everybody with me? Put some hearts on the screen if you're ready for some healthy relationship talk before we get into food. All right. So the statement, and I don't want to speak to the person's name, all right? Because it's really not about the person, it's about the mindset, okay? The person said something in essence of what a man is looking for in a woman, and they made a remark basically saying that a man is not looking for a woman who is just cute and just takes care of kids and is just that. And as I was reading the statement, I understood what they were saying, but here's what's the problem with that statement. Here's what's at the heart of that statement. All right? Most men, and I'm going to draw you all a picture. Okay? Most men say, right? They say they're looking for a queen. All right? Put some hearts on the screen or put a yes or put a crown up there if you have heard this over and over again. All right? Most men say they are looking for a queen. They're looking for a queen, someone to. And my crown looks a little short there, so let me give it one more piece. They say they're looking for a queen, someone to rule and reign with them. All right. But before you get to a queen, all right, before you get to a queen, you're going to encounter all kinds of women, right? In life, you are. I'm just having a little healthy talk moment here. You're going to encounter all kinds of women. Mm-hmm. All kinds. And so, what God was saying to me, and what I really felt Him saying in my spirit about this, is that before you can even get here to this queen that you so desire, all right, how you speak, how you speak about women in general is going to really determine whether or not you even get to queen status. Because I'm going to tell you this, most women who carry themselves as a queen are listening to how you talk about the general female population. And so if you have a disregard, a serious disregard in your speech towards the general population of women, which may include her sisters, her cousins, her auntie, her mother, her grandmother, her fellow friends. Thank you, Lady Barbara. If your tone towards women in general is condescending, I just want to help you, gentlemen. You're not ready for a queen. You see, if you have to start your statement by saying, I'm looking for a queen who does X, Y, and Z, and not a woman who does X, Y, and Z, and all of the rest of it is condescending, by virtue of your statement, you need to hear your own self-talk. You need to hear your own self-talk. You need to understand why you have not come in contact with a queen. Because your own self-talk about women in general is stopping your flow from even ascending to even understand who a queen is. Your own self-talk lets me know that you probably wouldn't recognize the queen if she approached or if you passed by her. Okay? So if you're saying, I'm a man who's looking for a queen who can rule and reign with me, not just some any old woman who can have babies and look cute, your mindset about women in general precludes you and disqualifies you from a queen. Because a man who's looking for a queen, all right, knows that there's a potential queen in every woman. I'm just trying to help some of you brothers out who are saying some stuff that you need to work on your self-talk. You need to work on what you're saying. I understand your heart, but you need to work on what you're saying. All right? So, if you're looking for a woman who's a queen, understand that the women you encounter all have a queen in them. They just may not be your queen. And so you don't need to speak in a condescending manner about women in general just to point out what you want in a woman specific. Somebody make sure y'all quote me on that today somewhere. You don't need to speak condescendingly about women in general in order to speak well of the woman that you want in specific. All right? And so I just want to help somebody today. Gentlemen, if you say you're looking for a queen, Please recognize the value in all of the other women who may not be your queen, but they're somebody else's queen. So you don't have to be condescending about what you see. And if you see something negative in the women that you encounter, then especially if you are a man of God, you really should be speaking to the queen in them. All right. There's a gentleman, I forget his name. It just came to me. R.C. Blake. Bishop R.C. Blake has an excellent teaching, not just for women, but for men as well, called the Queen Series. Some men need that series because they need to understand, how are you speaking to women in general? What are you saying about women in general? And if what you're saying about women in general is unhealthy, I am guaranteeing you there's no queen that is attracted to that. Real queens, real women of royalty are not attracted to men who speak condescendingly of all other women. Why? Because they know that that could be them one day, that you're speaking condescendingly of, when you no longer recognize the value of that woman in your life. So, just a little note for the gentlemen in the room and in the audience. If you say you're looking for a queen, you say you're looking for someone to rule and reign with you, pay attention to how you are speaking of women in general, because there is a queen in all of us. They may not be your specific queen, but there's a queen in all of us. So if you don't see it, then speak to it. Speak positively of the women in your life. Honor the women in your life. And then God can send you a specific one that you can heap your honor upon. All right? Hope that was helpful. Now we're going to go into the Bad Food Bible. How and why to eat sinfully, as the author titled the book. And we're talking about meat today. If you are a meat eater or a seafood eater, you can put a 1 on the screen. You can see how many people in here eat meat. I know some people are completely meat free, they're vegan. All right. I do eat meat. I don't eat it in large quantities, but I do eat meat. All right. Okay. So let's take a look at what he has to say here, what this doctor has to say. It's possible that no food has been attacked as widely or as loudly in the past few decades as meat. Advocates of meatless diets push them for lots of different reasons. Perhaps the biggest being the claim that they can reduce the risk of cancer. One of the leading voices in this school of thought was the Japanese scholar Michio Kushi, who promoted his macrobiotic and meatless way of life in books such as The Cancer Prevention Diet, first published in 1983. But he's not alone. Many people believe that a meatless diet can help stave off a range of diseases, thereby prolonging life. There's something intuitively appealing about the anti-meat argument. Without question, Westerners are more overweight and obese now than they were in the past. Also, without question, they are eating more meat than they have in recent memory. Back in the 1950s, for instance, Americans ate about 138 pounds of meat a year on average, with 107 pounds of that being red meat. By 2000, they were eating more than 195 pounds a year, almost 114 pounds of it red meat. The coincidence of these two trends, rising meat consumption and expanding waistlines, seems at first glance like a powerful affirmation of the claim that eating meat can harm human health. But there's a problem with this conclusion. Over the past decade or so, Americans have sharply reduced their meat consumption. In 2012, they were down to about 132 pounds a year, 6 pounds below the average in the 1950s. More dramatically, red meat consumption had dropped to 71 pounds, 36 pounds below the 1950s level, as Americans switched to more white meat, such as chicken. If meat, especially red meat, is all that bad for you, the United States would be seeing massive declines in obesity rates or deaths from cardiovascular disease. But Americans are not getting any less fat, nor does their decline in meat consumption seem to be lowering their likelihood of dying from heart disease. At least not when you look carefully at the research. It shows that even purported links aren't as strong as they might appear at first glance. Rates of death from heart disease have been down over the past few decades, but that is likely due to lower smoking rates, better emergency response systems, advances in medication and procedures, and increased public health measures to create healthier environments and encourage more physical activity. When it comes to obesity and heart disease, lowering the amount of meat in one's diet does not seem to be a silver bullet. Yet, calls for reducing meat consumption are just as loud today as they were back in the early 80s when Michio Kushi published his book. Meat's opponents often back up their claims with scientific studies that appear to show a causal link between meat consumption and health problems, and blame meat's saturated fat and high protein content for these effects. But as with so many other warnings about bad foods, and condemnations of meat are likely more definitive than they should be. In fact, if certain people follow this advice, it may actually harm them. So, who says meat will kill you? You have to bend the truth, or at least do some pretty selective reasoning to make a scientific case that meat is bad for you. For instance, in 2015, the physician and diet guru Dean Ornish wrote an editorial in the New York Times entitled The Myth of High Protein Diets. In it, he argued that plant based diets are healthier than those containing meat. An optimal diet for preventing disease is a whole foods, plant based diet that is naturally low in animal protein, harmful fats, and refined carbohydrates. What that means in practice is little or no red meat. Ornish is a major proponent of a low fat diet, so the fact that he was urging readers to reduce or eliminate their meat consumption was not surprising, but his use of the data was. In his op ed, Ornish cited research that he claimed showed that eating meat was more likely to make you die at a younger age. He mentioned one particular study published in 2014 that followed thousands of people over time to determine whether what they ate might be linked to the chances of their getting a disease or dying. As Ornish described it, his research found that increased protein intake was associated with large increases in mortality rates from all diseases, with high increases in the chance of death from cancer or diabetes. The thing is, that's not exactly what they showed. Overall, the researchers found no association between protein consumption and death from all causes, or from cardiovascular disease, or cancer individually when everyone over age 50 was considered. In other words, the study suggested that when all adults are considered together, eating meat isn't bad for them. So, how do people like Ornish get away with saying research says otherwise? The scary finding they like to cite was found only among people ages 50 to 65. In that group, eating more protein was associated with an increased risk of death, especially from cancer or diabetes. But in people aged 65 or older, the opposite was true. Eating more protein was associated with lower levels of all cause and cancer specific mortality. As the researchers themselves put it when they summed up their findings, these results suggest that low protein intake during middle age, followed by moderate to high protein consumption in old age, may optimize health span and longevity. In this instance, both Ornish and the researchers whose work he was citing probably overstated the findings of their study. If you truly believe that it proves what meat detractors say, that meat may kill people under the age of 65, then you also think that meat may save people age 65 and older. Not many diet experts would tell you that's the cause or the case, let alone recommend that you reshape your diet because of it. Furthermore, this study put anyone who got 20% or more of their calories from protein in what they call the high protein group. Almost all of the guidelines and recommendations I can find do not consider that amount of protein high at all. In fact, according to USDA guidelines, which do not constitute a high protein diet, Americans should get 10 to 35% of their calories from protein. This is a great example of how research can get twisted. Does this study show that eating more meat is more likely to make you die? Only if you agree with the researcher's definition of high protein and restrict the analysis to a certain artificially divided population. This, if you make your case by selectively picking certain factors. Sadly, this is only one example of this phenomenon. Over and over again, researchers and health experts cherry pick evidence to back up their belief that people should be eating less meat. Their intentions may be good. As Ornish himself points out in the conclusion of his essay, eating less meat can lessen the impact of animal farming on the environment and free up more grain for hungry people. But that doesn't change the fact that from a health standpoint, the case against meat isn't nearly as clear cut as he and other anti-meat eaters claim. There's another problem with this anti-meat logic. Meat is a very broad category. A pork chop, a hamburger, a piece of scrod all qualify as meat, but the nutritional content varies wildly based on the cut, the animal it comes from, and many other factors. Are these different kinds of meat good for you or bad for you? It depends on whom you ask and where you look. So here's one that we're going to talk about today, and that is fish. Fish is good for you, no bones about it. All meat isn't created equal. Even people who argue that meat isn't good for you usually aren't thinking about fish or seafood. Those types of meat aren't high in saturated fats and aren't typically the focus of warnings about animal consumption, unless those warnings are coming from people like Michio Kushi. In fact, as we saw in the previous chapter, many evidence-based diets, such as the Mediterranean diet, advocate for fish consumption in addition to fruits, vegetables, and oils high in unsaturated fats, such as olive oil. Even so, in recent years, fish has been added to the list of panic-inducing foods, alongside other kinds of meat. Tuna, for example, has become a concern for many health-conscious individuals. In this case, however, they aren't worried about something intrinsic to the nutritional content of fish. Rather, they're fretting about mercury. Mercury is a metal that exists in a liquid state at room temperature. It used to be the silver stuff you'd see in thermometers, but it's commonly used for that purpose no more because it's poisonous. In high enough doses, it can cause brain damage in children and even in adults. Mercury is found in small but rising amounts of seawater. Of course, humans don't normally drink seawater, but fish do. And over time, they absorb the mercury from it. Once it's in their bodies, it's very hard to get rid of, and as fish grow, so do their levels of mercury. Fish that live longer have higher levels of it, and the bigger the fish, the bigger the problem. When big fish eat little fish, they also eat the mercury in their bodies. Large, long-lived fish such as sharks and swordfish have the highest levels of mercury. Let me be clear. Mercury is bad for people and especially for pregnant women. But that does not mean that people in general, and pregnant women in particular, should avoid fish entirely, as some experts argue. In regard to pregnant women, the only way you can justify that conclusion is if you misinterpret the available research on the effects of mercury on pregnant women and their children. One way to measure mercury levels in people is to check how much there is in their hair. A study published in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine in 2005 claimed that for every 1 microgram of mercury per gram of detectable in a pregnant woman's hair, an infant might see a decrease of zero point 0.7 points in his or her IQ or intelligence quotient. But what are the practical implications of such a decrease, and how much fish would a woman have to consume to see this effect? Upon closer inspection, these findings are much less dramatic than they appear at first glance. For one thing, this decrease in IQ would be pretty much negligible in everyday life. Given that 90% of pregnant women in the United States have no more than 1.4 micrograms of mercury per gram of their hair, it's hard to imagine that anyone would experience more than a point or two difference in IQ. Note that the median value of mercury levels in women was zero point 0.2 microgram, which is barely noticeable. In addition, many other studies suggest mothers who eat more fish during pregnancy tend to have more intelligent children. Researchers who looked at overall fish consumption found that higher maternal fish intake was associated with smarter children. They found that women who had lower mercury levels but ate fish 2 or more times a week had infants with the highest cognitive scores. Some scientists attribute this to the omega 3 fatty acids in fish. But here's the problem: fish that have the high levels of these wonderful fatty acids, tuna, also tend to have high levels of mercury simply because they live longer and they grow bigger. These were all observational studies, so the findings aren't nearly as reliable as they would be if they were from experimental studies. But that's all we have to go on right now. Taken together, these studies suggest that pregnant women should stick to fish that are high in omega 3 fatty acids but low in mercury. Think the following fish. So if you're pregnant, consider eating these types of fish so you stay away from the high mercury. Salmon, my absolute favorite, herring, and sardines. Avoid fish that are low in omega 3 fatty acids and high in mercury. Think grouper, orange roughy, or canned tuna. Really, the same general guidelines apply to women who aren't pregnant, men, and children. Maximizing omega 3 fatty acids while minimizing mercury is never a bad idea. Unfortunately, the panic over mercury has led some people to avoid fish altogether. That's almost always a bad idea. The best evidence we have indicates that fish is good for us on the whole, regardless of its mercury content. In 2006, two researchers published the results of a study in which they reviewed all the available evidence about eating fish, but focused on the four main questions. How much consuming fish or fish oil increases the risk of heart disease? How much consuming mercury in fish and fish oil influences neurodevelopment? How much consuming mercury in fish influences heart disease and neurological outcomes in adults? And how much consuming dioxins and polychlorinated biphenyls in fish influence other health effects? They found that for the most healthy adults, the benefits of eating fish outweighed the risks. For pregnant women, too, the benefits of modest fish intake, with the exception of a few species, as previously noted, outweighed the risks. Most other studies of fish consumption and human health support these conclusions. In a number of studies, fish consumption has been associated with a reduced risk of esophageal cancer and ovarian cancer. It has not been associated with an increased risk of colon cancer. It has been found to be linked to a lower risk of developing diabetes. The Mediterranean diet, which recommends eating lots of fish, has been shown to prevent many undesirable cardiovascular outcomes, including heart attacks and death. Also, to its credit, the Mediterranean diet is supported by randomized controlled trials, the strongest type of research to prove causation. Anyone who says that fish is bad for you is either unfamiliar with the evidence or is only using the evidence selectively. As with other foods, you should think for yourself and eat accordingly. Next Friday, Lord willing, we're going to talk about white meat and how white meat is mostly fine too. All right, we are moving right along, and let's get into Wealth Can't Wait. This is chapter 7. I believe it's a chapter 9, excuse me. I believe it's a short chapter. It is. And so we may possibly get a chance to get into chapter 10, which is also a short chapter. We'll just see how we roll with time. Remember, this book is talking about wealth from the real estate perspective and wealth principles that the real estate investors learned while they were getting into the real estate field and building their portfolio. Chapter 9, Making It Happen with Ease. What we really want to do is what we are really meant to do. When we do what we are meant to do, money comes to us, doors open for us, we feel useful, and the work we do feels like play to us. Julia Cameron. What do you want in your life? Building wealth can happen with ease. First, let's distinguish ease from easy. To us, living a life of ease is pursuing the things we want in life. Contrast that with doing what others want us to do or what we perceive we should be doing, and we experience the path without ease. The path toward ease is not the path of least resistance. It is a path of varying resistances, but it is the path toward what you want in your life. Ask yourself, what do I want in life? Here's many of our answers: love, connection, family, abundance, growth, intimacy, wealth, health, vitality, leadership impact, creating a legacy, and yes, ease. If you are like us, you would want to ask the same question over and over again, being mindful of doing so while having no judgment. Forget about what others want you to have in your life or what you think you should have. Do this for yourself and keep in mind that we can be our own harshest critics and thus our greatest impediment to achieving ease. So ask yourself again, what do you want in life? And this time, ask the question without judging your answer and yourself. With ease. With ease. We are programmed to believe that what we want in our lives, if it has any value at all, should come at tremendous cost, be it time, effort, money, or sacrifice. That belief stands in the way of living as big a life as we are capable of. For example, Paul wants a net worth of $100 million, not because it's a random large number, but because he knows that it would bring certain things into his life: freedom and the power to choose and create. Why wouldn't you want $100 million in net worth? Well, without winning the lotto, it seems like it would require too much sacrifice, taking away from other vital things like time with your family. But here is an epiphany. Who says that journey must include massive personal sacrifice? What if you could have everything you want in your life and have ease? Somewhere along the way, we were brainwashed that what we truly want cannot come with ease. If what we truly want brings certain pain, it's no wonder that we avoid it and begin to hide from it. And if you get stuck, start dreaming. Paul likes to imagine what he would do if he won the lottery. For example, he might create the entrepreneurial foundation he has been dreaming about for a decade, one that truly feeds his soul, working with other talented people in a lively workspace, plays to his unique abilities, and has systems for the parts of work he either does not enjoy or where he is lacking. If you get stuck, Start dreaming. Pondering hypotheticals like these gives us a window into how we would like our lives to be. It is practical and logical. Without the $100 million, we may not have the resources to implement the entire picture, but at least we know where we're headed and what to shoot for. And that is a valuable lesson in creating ease. So, ask yourself, how would you create your life if money were not an obstacle? Good morning, love. What would you be willing to receive? What would you love to do? What would bring you true fulfillment? What would you do if you netted $100 million? Your magic zone is where passion meets ability. Now we're going to get into the zone and we're going to use Paul to get there. For example, Paul would really, really love to be an NBA star. He is passionate about the game, but he doesn't have the talent, the youth, or the physicality to succeed at this goal. It just isn't going to happen. That dose of reality is what prevents a fool's errand in a world where the self help gurus teach us only to think big. Paul's childhood friend, Alan Paul, one of the few guys who loved basketball even more than he did as a kid, but had even less ability, found his zone, the place where his passion met his ability. His true passions are basketball and music, specifically guitar. He graduated with a degree in journalism from the University of Michigan. Unlike his wife, who is now managing editor of the Wall Street Journal, he was not an ace journalism student, but he was a guy who quietly and in his own way relentlessly pursued his passion. At various points in the last 10 years, Al was the managing editor of Slam Magazine and Guitar World. He flew on private jets interviewing NBA stars, sat courtside for big games, and is very close friends with legendary guitarist Greg Allman of the Allman Brothers. Al recently wrote One Way Out, the inside history of the Allman Brothers band. Ever open to possibility, Al encouraged his wife to take the post of chief of the Wall Street Journal, their China bureau during the Olympics in Beijing. He had to play Mr. Mom as they dragged their three young children around the globe. He walked away from his work in order to do this. While in China, he met some great Chinese musicians who shared his love of the blues. They formed a blues band, which no doubt would have struggled in the United States, but was a big hit in China. Before his China adventure was over, Al was headlining music festivals across China. You can read about this amazing adventure in his book, Big in China. Likewise, Paul's buddy Dan Siegel combined his law degree and disdain for the practice with his lifelong love of soccer to open what is now the largest U.S. soccer representation firm. Was this the path of least resistance? Not by a long shot. It took Dan a decade to make a decent living at it. After years of hardcore battle, he chose to swallow his pride and partner with his top competitor to form the firm of the largest market share. That move made them a viable candidate for acquisition by the ever growing powerhouse Wasserman Media Group. So, what's the difference between ease and easy? Ease is different from the path of least resistance. If you continually assess what you want in your life and move toward those choices, then you are choosing a life of ease. Having what you want creates ease. It does not mean that the path is easy or that it is the path of least resistance. Often the opposite can happen. Going for what is easy can take us away from ease by taking us off course and not pursuing the things we love. For example, the prospect of a high paying job can lure us away from the grind of building our own business. Creating harmony in a meaningful relationship is another way we create ease. We all enjoy the parts of relationships that work for us, but at some point, we have to confront the parts that aren't working. Let's say your partner does something unintentionally that steps onto one of your childhood wounds. The path of least resistance would be to just let it go while resentment and anger continues to build inside of you. Having the tough conversation right away is not pleasant or easy, yet confronting it leads to ease. Openly communicating and creating healthy boundaries with a partner or child or coworker is a great example of something that creates a lifetime of ease but isn't necessarily easy. You fight your ease when you focus on the negative. What we focus on expands. Let me say that again. What we focus on expands. You focus on problems and challenges, and guess what? You'll get more of them. Paul remembers a NASCAR driver who was being interviewed. The driver was asked about what he did in the split second when cars began to crash all around him. His answer was to point the noise of his race car to where the cars were not crashing. At first, that seemed like an overly simplistic or odd answer, but the more he thought about it, the more he saw genius in that answer. Your vehicle, like it or not, tends to go towards what you focus on. That's the metaphor, and it's a powerful one for our lives. Do you focus on the crash or do you focus on the opportunity? Like the NASCAR driver, if you focus on the opportunity and make it through the crash, there are fewer cars competing and your odds of winning go up. What you focus on, what you naturally put energy into. Wouldn't it be better to focus on the opportunity instead of the crash? Yes. Every time you bump into adversity, ask yourself this question: what is the opportunity in this for me? There's an opportunity to grow and learn in almost any situation. Using the NASCAR driver as a metaphor, what would your life look like if you chose to focus on the path of opportunities rather than all the crashing cars? Choosing ease is not choosing easy. And we're not suggesting that you ignore the cars crashing. Driving blindly will not help your cause. Instead, we're saying notice and learn from, but don't focus on the crash. Focus on the opportunities that lie within every situation that you encounter in your life. Few of us do this naturally, but in those tough instances lie your greatest opportunities. There is ease in every path. When on a path that is true to you, work becomes easy. Hard things aren't hard when they lie on your path to becoming who you truly are. Chapter 10: Taking responsibility for your wealth. Let others lead small lives, but not you. Let others argue over small things, but not you. Let others cry over small hurts, but not you. Let others leave their future in someone else's hands, but not you. And remember the four things that never return: the spoken word, the speeding arrow, the wasted life, and the neglected opportunity. Jim Rohn. Building wealth begins with taking responsibility for your own. Paul's first brush with wealth was interacting with his dad's first cousin, Charles. Paul's cousin died more than 30 years ago with more than $100 million in net worth, which would be closer to $220 million today. Charles did not receive a formal education. His parents gave him $0, and he didn't hit the lotto or get lucky in any way. However, what this book does not discuss, that I'm going to tell you, is that Paul already had built in advantages by virtue of who he was in America. Building wealth begins with taking responsibility for your own wealth. Paul was the first person, Charles was the first person Paul had ever met who could do exactly what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. Paul noticed that one thing that set him apart from everyone else was he did not complain. If you stop and try to find one person in your life who does not complain and does not blame, you will be hard pressed. The most important accelerator for wealth building might also be the most important accelerator for life, and that is take responsibility for everything in your life, good and bad. One thing we know is that having a no excuse habit is the single greatest change you can make in your life. That one change makes you the creator of your own reality. We don't mean in a way that is inconsistent with a higher power or any faith belief. Your God, whether Judeo Christian, Eastern, Muslim, or any other, does not want you to play small. At this point in your life, we don't believe there's one single excuse for not being where you want to be. It is all on your shoulders, and though that is scary sometimes, it can be hard in the moment. You become empowered as soon as you stop making excuses for the events in your life. That is the ultimate wealth truth. Right now, despite your education level, despite your family history, despite your level of intelligence, despite anything, you have the power to reach your goals. As soon as you believe that, you are ready to accept what you deserve in life. Here's the question Paul always asks: what do I want in life? That question is easy to understand. Here's a seemingly more complicated one, though. What am I willing to receive in life? The answer to that question is tied to how much responsibility you take for where you are right now. It doesn't matter if you're flat broke or well on your way to building the wealth that you want. Accept this truth. You're exactly where you are because of your actions and who you are being, how you are showing up in the world. As soon as you accept that, you're willing to receive. This shift, if you can make it, will change everything for your life. It will change your personal world, it will change your business world, and it will change your relationships. Because if you know what it is that you deserve to receive in life, then when people are giving you stuff you don't deserve, you will quickly say, you don't belong in my life because you're not giving me the things that I believe that I deserve. Plain and simple, if you are involved, you have some level of control. And if it does not go well, it's on you. Listen to that statement, internalize it, accept it, and surrender it. Let's demonstrate this another way by looking at extremes. If you don't take responsibility for anything, you are a tiny ball in the world's pinball machine. You get blasted from one bumper to the next. None of it is in your control. Conversely, if you choose to take responsibility for everything, your past, your present, and your future, suddenly you are 100% in control. People don't like all of life's outcomes, and so they shy away from responsibility. It's natural to take credit when something goes right, and then to take no responsibility when it does not go well. You reap what you sow is one of the best lessons in life. If you thought about it before every interaction you had with another person, your life would work for you. As a matter of fact, I do think about it when I interact with other people. You reap what you sow. It's a spiritual law, it's a spiritual principle, and it's not going anywhere. So, you sow bitterness, guess what? You're going to reap it. You sow revenge, you're going to reap revenge. You sow discord, you're going to reap discord. You sow hatred, you're going to reap hatred. All right? And many times you're going to reap a whole lot more than what you sowed. So if I want kindness, I got to sow it. If I want love, I have to sow it. If I want joy, I sow it to other people. If I want finances, if I want wealth in a financial capacity, I sow it. Because the spiritual law is you reap what you sow, not what someone else sows, but you reap what you sow. All right? So here's the thing. If you thought about that before every interaction you had with another person, your life would begin to work for you. Because how do we know this? You would work on not putting out into the world what you don't want to get back. And one of the things the Lord told me a couple of weeks ago, He said that this was a season of the boomerang. He said, be careful what you put out in this hour because it's going to come back to you swiftly. And so I have definitely been working on increasing my intentionality as to what I put out in the world. Even when somebody is trying to put out negativity towards me, I try to work on not putting negativity back out to them because I understand that I'm going to reap what I sow, not what they put out, but what I sow. And if everybody understood that, their response to a whole lot of things would be a whole lot different. All right. So here's one more benefit of taking responsibility. You can begin or perpetuate a virtuous cycle. That's what we want to perpetuate in our life. When you're willing to take responsibility, your willingness creates space for those around you to take responsibility. Consider the opposite. Nothing makes another person more defensive than blaming them for a bad outcome. So, taking responsibility for everything has a positive effect on the people around you. Lastly, the power of choice. Don't underestimate the power of words and emotions they create. When you have to or need to do something, it carries a heaviness along with it that saps your energy. It is as if there's an outside force requiring it. It seems real, but is it? So, let's take a look at this. So, I'm going to give you this example. You have two negatives here and two positives, right? Have to, need to, want to, get to. If I'm talking about, let's say I serve in a worship department at a ministry, all right? And I get up in the morning and I say, I have to go to rehearsal this morning before service. That's draining. I could even say, I need to go to rehearsal this morning before service. That's a little better, but it's still on the negative side. But when I say I want to go to rehearsal this morning before worship service, I get some energy. When I say I get to go to rehearsal this morning before service, I'm at a totally different place than the person who says I have to go. That is the power of our language. That is the power of our words. And so even if maybe I'm on working at a job that I'm experiencing some challenges with right now, I can change how I feel about that job by changing how I speak about it. So instead of saying I have to go to this job today, I can say I get to go. And this is more of a statement of gratefulness and thankfulness of even having a job. Some people don't get to go to a job. They get to go stand in line and fill out paperwork because they don't have a job. So I get to go and I want to go are not energy sappers. I have to and I need to are energy sappers. All right? Do you really, if you're saying I have to go to work, do you really have to? The writer says, we have a friend, not a wealthy man, who just decided not to go to work anymore. Instead, he collects disability and child support and fritters away his time. He hasn't worked a day in 10 years. We may not choose this path, but it is certainly an option. Think about the statement, I have to pay my mortgage. Do you really have to? We knew someone who was living in a gorgeous house worth millions of dollars. Times got tough and he didn't make a mortgage payment in over 3 years. Eventually, he worked it out with the debtor who bought the note from the bank. This guy used every tool possible to stay in the house. If you really looked at it, you would be surprised by what you really have to do versus what you choose to do. The same goes for your children. Do they ever ask you to not go into work and stay home with them instead? Chances are you tell them you have to go to work. Think about that for a second. Do you really have to go? Not really, but you chose to go. The next time your children ask you to stay at home, think about their proposal. If you truly want to go to work, then let them know that. You can explain that it pays the bills, but that is still your choice. And then offer an alternative way to spend time with them. Or if you truly don't need to go in that day, then take the day off. In the grand scheme of things, which choice will have a bigger impact on your life? Consider the possibility of removing have to and need to from your vocabulary, especially except when you are referring to a trip to the bathroom. Very few things in life are not a choice. Instead, choose empowering language for yourself. That language, in turn, will shape the way you think, and that will lead you on the path to ease. Again, consider the possibility of removing have to and need to from your vocabulary. And I'm going to go further and say, consider adding want to and get to into your vocabulary. We are done for today. That concludes chapter 10, taking responsibility for your wealth. Next week, we'll be dealing with chapter 11, which is about dealing with setbacks. Dealing with setbacks in your life. Listen, I want to thank you for your time and attention. I hope I have said something to get you thinking today, something that will help you think about your diet, something that will help you think about your mindset and the words and the vocabulary that you're using to speak about your life, to speak about your choices, to speak about creating wealth for yourself. All right. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So please go out today and be light. Let's start thinking about what we can change in our life so that we can walk with ease in our life. Remember, there's a difference between walking with ease and something being easy. Everything in life is not going to be easy. All right? It's not going to be easy, but we can walk out the things that God has called us to do with ease when we're going in the direction of our purpose and we're not pushing and fighting against it. Okay? I pray that you have a great and wonderful weekend. We will be back on Sunday with our service at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those of you who want to tune in, my husband will be delivering the word in his next series. All right. Take care and God bless.